Hello and a good morning, good afternoon and a very good evening to you, the company of the tube. Hope you are today, hope you're feeling grand and all is well in your world. Hello there everybody, welcome to Q&A Wednesday. Let's get into question one today. Question one today is, how do you control your volume for solos? I use the Zoom G2 pedal for this. It's just something I found to do a long time ago, really. Because I like to use so much distortion and so much gain that you can't really get much of a volume jump out of that kind of gain. You know what I mean? There's so much kind of over the topness with the distortion, especially with like using the DS2. That you kind of can't really get a volume jump. So what I do is I use two different patches on the Zoom G2. And basically I have patch A7 set up with a volume, say, at 82. Then patch A8, which is a solo boost, set up at 92. You know what I mean? Just like 10 above. And that gives me an adequate kind of volume jump. And the really cool thing about using the Zoom as a volume jump and a boost is you can alter the EQ. And you can also, obviously, you know, if you wanted to, you could assign an effect, you know, like delay or reverb or whammy or whatever to your boost thing and not have it on your rhythm thing. So what I've always done is have A7 as my kind of like rhythm sound, kind of like my main rhythm sound. And, you know, if I don't need to use the boost, I won't. I'll just stick on A7. But invariably, if you're in certain conditions, you'll have to stick out. And then what I do is if I just go to a solo, I just click it over to A8, which again is volume. Its volume is louder than A7, and it's got a slightly different EQ. And that just gives me an adequate volume jump basically. So that's what I do. It's not really rocket science. I mean, I know some people use kind of clean boost in the effects loop of an amp. That works as well. You can run like things into effects loop with your amp to boost solos. The band I was in years ago called Gimbal. The other guitarist, Lawrence, the singer, for a long time he used a volume pedal in his effects loop to control his solos. So when the volume pedal was back all the way, it was kind of like a normal kind of rhythm sound. When he pushed it forward all the way, it was a lead sound. So that's what he used for his volume. And then you could also kind of like, you know, attenuate it to however you wanted. You know, if full boost was too loud, you could attenuate that back. But I've always done it just as a set kind of thing through the Zoom, which is just something that I've really enjoyed doing. It just worked, shall I say. But yeah, so that's how I control volume solos. I mean, there are other ways, but like I said, I like to use so much distortion that it's kind of like, you know, it's quite impossible. You know, if you start adding more gain to it, it's just, you know, it's so compressed as it is, my sound, when I stick on like the DS2 or the Marshall Governor, that kind of like, it's kind of, you can't really get much more out of it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So yeah, that's what I do to control the volume for solos and stuff like that. So, and I've done that for years now. I've done that since like 2005. I started doing that in 2005, so I've done that since then. So it's quite a simple kind of fix, really. It works, you know, and it works really well because, like I say, I mean, you just have one patch set up quieter than the other one, and you know, if you use the quiet one as your rhythm and the loud one as lead, you've always got a volume jump, and it doesn't matter how much gain you stack into that signal, you'll always have a volume jump. So job's a good one. So, I hope this answers your question. Like I say, there are other ways around it. Like I say, you can run things into effects loops and stuff like that. So, yeah. So, there we go. Okay, so moving on. Question 2 now is, I want to buy a new guitar, but which one would you recommend? Squier Classic Vibe or a Made in Mexico Fender? Or should I build my own parts caster after a John Frusciante kind of tone? I mean, in all fairness, you kind of can't really go wrong with any of those three options. You know, the building your own thing is kind of fraught with issues, just in case there can be, you know, just in case what you buy doesn't necessarily work out for you. Personally, I wouldn't recommend that. It's an option, definitely, it's an option. But personally, I would go for the either Made in Mexico Fender or the Classic Vibe. Because you kind of can't go wrong with either of them, depending on, like, you know, if it's a good or a bad guitar. Because in this day and age, we can't try before we buy. We just got to kind of hope it works. I think I'd recommend the Classic Vibe over the Made in Mexico Fender. Made in Mexico Fenders are amazing. They really are. But the Classic Vibe does have something super special. Like really, really special. And you also said about the Made in Mexico Fender will be used. So yeah. I mean, personally, if I was doing that, I'd probably go for the Classic Vibe, just because I know how good they are, and you know, they just sound really awesome. You know, all the time they just sound consistently awesome. I've never tried one that's bad. I have played a couple of Made in Mexico Fenders that weren't great. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great. But again, it really comes down to kind of like the look of the draw. You know, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad, kind of thing. You know what I mean? That's sadly the line we must all walk when buying guitars blind. Is that you could get a dog or you could get a king. It's totally dependent on you know, because a guitar that you might think is terrible, somebody else might buy it and think it's the best guitar in the world. You know what I mean? So it's really weird and really kind of things are really really strange and subjective in music, and especially in musical instruments. There's so many variables in musical instruments. You know what I mean? It's just so many variables. You can never really have an idea of if it's going to be good or a bad instrument. You know, it's bizarre, really. So, personally, I'll go for the Classic Vibe, but the Made in Mexico is a good go as well. And also, building your own is good fun. But personally, if you have to jump shanty things, I mean, I go just Classic Vibe. It gives you that kind of sound. So. You also asked, what do you think of lo-fi music? And I don't really know what lo-fi music is, so I can't really answer. I don't really know what that is. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I can't really answer that one, I'm afraid. So I do apologise immensely. But like I say, guitar-wise, I'd probably go Squire Classic Vibe. So, yes. But so I don't know what lo-fi music is. You know, I don't know what that defined. I don't know if I've even heard any. But yes. Okay, so I hope this is a question. Moving on to question 3 now. Question 3 is, how can I get a Jimi Hendrix and Rory Gallagher tone out of the Katana Mark II? I'm after a Foxy Lady Purple Haze sound for Jimi and a Bad Penny Moonchild sound for Rory Gallagher. Okay, so Jimi tone. It'd be a lot easier if I could play these songs, Hendrix Estate. Anyone else thinks that copyright should be lifted until coronavirus is over? I certainly do. It's not going to happen because everyone in the music industry like that is greedy as hell. But Jimi Hendrix tone out the Katana Mark II. It's kind of the same as the Mark I, really. You want to go for the lead mode. So go to the lead mode on the Katana. I don't have a Mark II anymore, so I can't really demo this because they sound different to me. But you want to go to the lead mode and run the gain about half. Run the gain at half, volume all the way up on the thingy. And then bass, I would say, wants to be about half as well. So gain and bass want about 12 o'clock. Forget the treble. Turn the treble all the way down and all the way off. Mids, you're going to have to tweak that to your own preference. Because what we want to do really is we want to set up a kind of a clean tone, and then what we're going to do is we're going to stick one of the boost functions over the top of this to get the Fox Lady Purple Haze tone. So that should that whole thing of like gain at lead mode, gain at 12 o'clock, volume all the way up, bass at 12 o'clock, mid you'll have to tweak. I would say it probably wants to be about 9 o'clock. If that, it probably won't be off actually, to be honest with you. But somewhere between all the way off and 9 o'clock on the mids. Forget the treble. You know, don't need treble. And then what I would do is I would shove something like the red setting over the top on the booster function. And I would crank it all the way to the teeth, you know, all the way up. Just turn that thing all the way up. And then over the top of that kind of already semi-broken up kind of cleanish tone, Jimi clean tone, you should be able to get a pretty good kind of Foxy Lady kind of tone out of a Stratocaster. Rory Gallagher's a lot harder because Rory never really had a set sound. Rory had loads of different sounds. It's like, every gig his sound seemed to be different. Because he was using something different, or something wasn't quite, or he changed pickups in his guitar, or he rewired something, or whatever. Rory always had like different sounds. If you take the sound he had during the Taste era and his first solo album, and then you kind of like compare that with the sound he had in like when Lou Martin joined, and they did kind of that era of mid to late 70s. It's a totally different sound, because he went from using the Vox AC30 with a treble booster to using like the Fender Bassman and the Fender Concert, which were a thinner, more cutting sound. They weren't as fat as the AC30 because he needed to make frequency. He needed to find his own frequency space in the band, so he had to thin his sound out a bit more. Rory did. So if you look at those those eras where he's playing with Lou Martin, it's his tone is a lot thinner because he's using the Fender Bassman. And it's not ridiculously thin. It's not a waspy sound, but he's got a different tone altogether because they're using the Bassman and the Fender Concert. So and then after that, you start getting into kind of like it's kind of a bit of a crapshoot really, because Rory would just use anything after that. There was a lot of times where he'd just use those Marshall JMP 50 combos. There was a lot of gigs where he had two of them running. But there are also gigs where he's using an Ampeg and a Marshall, and there's also gigs where he's using a Vox AC30 and tiny little Mesa Boogie combos and a Marshall. And there's also times where he's kind of like using, there's the Montreux gig where he's using two Marshall half stacks and a Marshall and a Vox AC30. So it's a bit of a crapshoot really when it comes down to Rory's tone, because he's forever swapping and changing amplifiers and effects as well, to be honest with you. I mean, there was always something coming in, for the longest time, for a while. I mean, Rory was using kind of like, that Boss distortion unit, and I think he used that for a long, long time, but it didn't come in for a long time. That's kind of like an 80s kind of thing, when Rory was using that distortion pedal, and he would kind of run that in tandem with the Marshall JMPs. Along with like a phaser pedal for every now and again for like for Last of Independence or something like that, or Mississippi Sheiks. They use phase on Mississippi Sheiks every now and again. Shadow Player's another one he'd use a phaser in just to get some kind of movement every now and again. The Montreux footage of that is a classic example of the phaser. But I'm gonna do a video on this one day where I'm just gonna talk about Rory's tone, because I feel I could fill an hour video with talking about, people of the tube, if you'd be interested in seeing me do a video talking about Rory Gallagher's tone and maybe trying to use some examples. I can't play his songs sadly, but maybe use some examples. Would anybody be interested in that? I could put it in part of the Rory Gallagher series, because his tone is so bizarre sometimes, and it really, really changes, and it morphs and it warps because there's so much he used. So when you're going for the Bad Penny tone, I mean, the thing is, the Bad Penny studio tone sounds to me like multiple different amplifiers and multiple different guitars, because Rory was a tinkerer in the studio. Live, he had two or three amplifiers, if not more, running with one sound, you know what I mean? But adding over the top of that a phaser or an octave divider later on, stuff like that. He would keep it simple, but in the studio things were never simple with Rory. You know what I mean? Like the Bad Penny album version, the rhythm guitar tone's really gnarly. It's really it's a really sharp high mid focused guitar tone, and it's really aggressive, really aggressive. But the riff tone, the main kind of riff of Bad Penny in that tone is a lot smoother, and the guitar solos are a lot smoother, and there's also extra bits in there, other guitar sounds that are kind of like, that sounds like a different amp altogether. And Rory was renowned for using loads of different amps in the studio. He didn't just kind of necessarily use an AC30, when obviously in the early days he did, but kind of as things kind of progressed, he was looking sonically for different sounds in the studio. And Bad Penny is a good example of this, because there's a million different tones in that song. The rhythm tone is not what he uses for the rhythm tone is not the same stuff he uses for the lead tone. And Rory had a lot of weirdo amps and a lot of weirdo guitars. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there was Stratocasters and stuff like that. But there was also kind of like Dan Electros and Tysco guitars and all these kind of like, you know, airlines and stuff like that, which kind of technically same thing. But, you know, so it makes me wonder, like, you know, for the album tone of Bad Penny, I don't think can be achieved because there's too many variables. You know, you can't get the album tone of of Bad Penny. You can't get the album rhythm tone of Bad Penny and use that for the lead tone because they don't match, if that makes any sense. Like, they're two totally different sounds. So you can't really do that. So you have to kind of like look more towards his live stuff. And if you're looking at the live kind of era, Rory, where he's playing Bad Penny, invariably around that time, Rory's using Marshalls. Whether he used that in the album, I highly doubt it. It doesn't sound like a Marshall to me. It sounds like the rhythm tone of Bad Penny in the album version sounds like a very low-powered amp cranked to the teeth. You know what I mean? It's like a 5, 10, 15 watt amplifier that's wound all the way up. You know what I mean? And it's got a real sharp mid-focus to it. So I don't think it's a Fender, and I don't really think it's a Marshall. It could be an Ampeg. Ampegs kind of sound a bit like that, old Ampegs when you wind them up. It could have been a Mesa Boogie. I know Rory did use Mesa Boogies. It could have been anything. It could have been some random weirdo amp. He did use, for the album Defender, a Washburn solid state amplifier for some of the songs in Defender. It was a Washburn solid state amp because again, it's just different sounds in the album. But yeah, so Rory's tone is a lot harder to get. Sorry, I totally went off on one there. But Rory's tone is a lot harder to get because it fluctuates. But what I would go for, because I don't really know. I did do a video on. I did answer this a while ago where I did kind of spoke about it. The thing is, one of the keys to Rory's tone. Oops, sorry, guitar. One of the keys to Rory's tone is using position 2. Both these pickups on, especially for Bad Penny and Moonchild. That's the sound. It's not bridge pickup alone. It's not middle pickup alone. It's both those. It's position 2 on a Stratocaster. That's the key to that kind of. You know, Rory used that. Rory used position 2 all the time. You know, he really did. If you want to kind of like try and nail as best you can Rory's tone, then you know you need position 2 pretty much all the time. Which is why I don't understand why Rory's signature guitar has a freeway and 2 tones. Someone wasn't thinking straight at Fender. They had access to the guitar and they still got it wrong. Anyway, at least they got Machine Head's kind of right. Anyway, I digress again. But Rory's tone, I mean, like I say, position 2 on a Stratocaster is key because that's the live sound of Rory, and he's always in that position pretty much. You know, well, he's not always in that position, but that's his kind of like go-to position, if that makes any sense. You know, it's he uses a neck pickup and the bridge pickup a lot, but the most used position for Rory Gallagher is position 2 on a Stratocaster, where you've got the bridge in the middle together. And again, you know, it's so hard to pin down his sound because he's got so many of them. But yeah. So what would I go for? I mean, I'd probably just kind of like go to the Brown mode, wind the gain up all the way. Yeah, Brown mode, gain up all the way, volume up all the way, bass at about 12 o'clock again, mids again, tweak and tweeze. It depends on what your guitar sounds like. What else you're kind of running it through setup wise. But mids again, I would say somewhere between off and 9 o'clock. I would highly doubt they need to be higher with single coils. Forget the treble. Treble can stay off, and that'd be probably your best bet really. And then if you wanted a bit more, you could always add in the booster. I would use the green booster for Rory. Not the green booster. The yellow booster for not yellow. No, green. Sorry, I was right. Yeah, right in the first place, Dave. Well done. Yeah, so I'd use the green booster for Rory, the red one for Jimi, but the green one for Rory. And then you can also add in things like phaser on the Katana as well if you wanted to kind of get more kind of like Shadow Play Live thing, or like I say Mississippi Chic's kind of sound, or Last of the Independence sound. I think he uses. I'm pretty sure he uses a phaser on Mississippi Chic's live. I don't remember offhand. I ain't listened to that song in ages, but I forget. But yeah, so that's what I would do. That would be what I'd recommend for Rory's tone. But I say Rory's tone is really hard to get. You can only ever you can only ever approximate anybody's tone, really. You can't really ever get 100% because you're not that person. But you can get pretty close, you know what I mean? But again, the key to Rory's tone is that position 2. You know, it really is. It's both these pickups on. That's how you dial in Rory's tone with any amp and a Stratocaster. Is you stick your guitar into position 2, because that's Rory's tone. It's got a honky, nasally kind of mid-ranged focused thing, and that's what Rory had. Sorry, I'm looking up there because there's a picture of Rory Gallagher on my wall there. So that's what Rory had. And that's the way I always dial in. If I'm after a Rory tone, that's what I do. Is I immediately put my Strat into position 2. And then go from there, you know, and that's how I look for his sound. I don't ever look for Rory's tone on the bridge pickup alone or the neck pickup alone. I always try and find it. Well, unless I'm after the taste era. If you're after the taste era tone, then you want to be on bridge pickup. But other than that, it's position 2. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to have to move on because I could talk about it all day. Like I say, if you want to see a more in-depth video of me just rambling about that, using a couple of examples, then let me know. Okay, so yeah, so anyway, I hope that's answered your question. Move on to question 4 now. Okay, so question 4 is, what decibel level do you play at home? I normally play between 78 and 80 dB. I don't ever go higher than 80 because obviously I've got neighbours and I'm in a residential area and you don't want to be too obnoxiously loud. My MGs never make it above 1 on the volume control. I don't like to play super loud anyway because I've got really sensitive hearing. So if things get too loud, it becomes really uncomfortable for me. I don't like loud, really. I like playing loud, but I always wear earplugs if I do. I can't hack loud music without earplugs. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. But yeah, so I normally play around between 78 and 80 dB. 78 is probably like the clean, and then 80 is kind of like when I kick on like a DS2 or the Governor. That's kind of normally where that kind of goes. So, sorry everyone, I broke my fingernail in the intro jam and it's catching on things. I hate that. So yeah, so that's where I normally play. It's just say between 78 and 80 dB, and it doesn't really fluctuate, to be honest with you. I kind of decided a long time ago that's where it was going to stay, and I do check every now and again with my dB. I've got a decibel reader, and I do check to make sure I'm not going too silly over the top. And also, I want to look after my hearing, because I don't want to ruin my ears. You know what I mean? I want to take care of them. So playing at 80 dB for like an hour is enough to fatigue your ears, to a point, but it's not enough to kind of really damage them, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So yeah, I normally play around there. So So you also asked, do you have advice on joining bands? Kind of at this point in time, that's kind of null and void, isn't it? Yeah, at this point in time, there are no such thing as bands at this point in time. It's a bit weird, stupid time. Well, it's not a stupid time, but it kind of is. It's a mental time. It's just bizarre. Joining bands, though, if things ever go back to normal, you just got to get out there and just play with as many people as you can and find like-minded individuals. That's literally what it comes down to. It's just a case of just putting yourself out there and just doing what you can, really. You just got to throw yourself in the deep end, really, sometimes. But yeah, I mean, that's all you can do. Just find like-minded individuals who like playing what you like to play, and it's hard work, though. Bands are hard work, and personality clashes and all that kind of thing. There's always some kind of issue in a band, so bands are never drama free. There's always something going on. So yeah, anyway, I hope that's answered your question. I'm going to move on to question 5 now. Question 5 is, when you get Revelation guitars from Revelation, are they good to play straight out of the box, or do they need setting up? They're good straight out of the box. All the Revelations I've got, I have very, very rarely tweaked. There was one that I tweaked just because it had a 2-point floating tremolo and I didn't like it. It was gorgeous, stunning guitar. I forget the model of it, but it was like a tobacco sunburst flame top. It looked a bit like I don't know. I can't remember. It looked a bit like a Wolfgang, an EVH Wolfgang. But I can't remember what the model was, but it was an amazing guitar. I loved that guitar. That was one of those guitars that I was absolutely gutted to see go back. Because I loved that guitar. But the only thing I altered on that one was the 2-point floating trem. Because the tremolo was kind of like off the body, like that, because of his 2-point. And so I just screwed it down and locked it down so I could just dive bomb the thing. Because I don't like floating trems. I just don't like them at all. I'm going to get rid of a floating trem on the SD62 because it's just... I'm not using it anymore for that, and I just don't really like it. So I'm going to get rid of that and just not use it. But yeah, other than that was the only guitar I had to reset up just because obviously when you lower it down, you know, the string action comes down, so you have to heighten that back up. Other than that, there's the... The RTL 59 and the RTL 55, I didn't do anything with them. I only changed the RTL 59 when, obviously, I stripped the top, you know. When I stripped that off, obviously, kind of, I had to re-alter the action and everything on that. But the RTL 55, I didn't change a thing on that guitar. When that came, out of the box, was fine. The way it was out of the box is the way I demoed it. And... Revelation don't do a setup on them as far as I know. They get set up at the factory where they're built, and then they get sent over, and then they get shipped out. The fin line was ridiculously gorgeous. The blues line one with the green blues line Les Paul, that was perfect. The quad was perfect. The quad was stupid actually. The quad was absolutely beyond perfect. When I got the quad, I was just like, that you can't be serious. I never altered a thing on that guitar. It was just, it never I never changed anything. I just never needed to change anything on it. The only thing I changed on the fin line was, I locked the tremolo down. I didn't lock it down all the way. I could still dive bomb it, but I didn't have it floating. When the fin line came, it was floating, and I just went in there and just put the claw screws in and just clicked it back down to the body. Other than that, I didn't do anything with it. And again, that was another guitar that... I missed that guitar. The Fiesta Red fin line, I shouldn't have got rid of that guitar. That was silly. I missed that guitar horrifically. And I shouldn't have got rid of that guitar. That was very silly of me. And you live and you learn. You live and you learn. But I did actually nearly have the chance to buy it back just before the coronavirus outbreak. The guy who I sold it to was selling it, but unfortunately I couldn't afford it, and it's gone. So it's gone to somebody else now. So darn. Anyway, but yeah, I can't think of a Revelation guitar I've got that has come where I've gone, oh, I've got to set this up. This doesn't feel right. I've had a few guitars come from other companies that I've gone, ugh, that needs a setup. Not many though. Not many. There's never been any sharp fret edges on the Revelations. None of that fret sprout. I mean, the necks are bound anyway. They kind of keep that in check. But there's never been any sharp edges on the fretboards. Or anything like that, you know what I mean? It's yeah, I can't think of a single Revelation guitar I've been sent that I've gone, oh, this needs a setup. Like I say, other than personal preference, not having floating trems, because I just don't like floating trems. That's just the thing, and especially if they're 2-point. I forget what that Revelation was now actually, but it was absolutely oh, I could swear it was so gorgeous. It sounded amazing. It looked amazing. It played amazing. Oh, I should have stolen it. It was so good. I forget what it was, but it was amazing. And there's a demo of it somewhere on my channel. But it was an amazing guitar. It was like tobacco burst, flame top. Oh, filth. Absolute filth. But yeah, I mean, I've never had any revelations come to me of just bad guitars. Oh, that was another one as well. That revelation weirdo guitar. It was like this weird. I can't remember what that one was called. Even it was like really funky shape. It had like 24 frets, a 2-point tremolo again, which I left on this guitar because it kind of fit to the guitar, and I didn't want to tweak that one too much. It was a guitar they wanted to send me, and I was like, I'm not really interested in demoing that. It's not a guitar I'd go for. And it came, and it was literally one of the most amazing guitars I've ever played in my life. And it was just one of those moments in your life where you go, never ever just think that something won't work for you, because that guitar was amazing. And I forget what that one was as well, but it was a really funny looking weirdo thing. It had these huge cutout or cutaways. It's super strange looking guitar, but my gravy, was it an awesome guitar. Oh, I can still remember it now, how good it was. It was so good. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I've never really tweaked any guitars, really. I mean, you know, I don't really like tweaking guitars. Once a guitar is set up, I just don't touch it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, once it's set up and it plays where I want it to, I leave it alone. I'm not one of those people who constantly tweaks their action or constantly, you know, changes the tremolo and stuff like that. Like, you know, doing that on the SD62 is super rare. I'm not one of those people who kind of like, you know, feels the need to change pickups or this and the other. You know, I only change things if something breaks. You know what I mean? Strings, pots, jack sockets, you know, stuff like that. Obviously, you know, refrets, but yeah, I don't like to change things. I like to keep things as stock as is humanly possible. I just don't like to mess around with things. You know, I like to keep things as they are. You know what I mean? An example: the middle pot on this guitar is bust. It's an infinite pot. The shaft is broken away from the main part of the pot, but I don't really use tone pot. I don't really use the tone pots, to be honest with you. Especially not that one. If I use one, I use this one. Just to kind of like get the Rory Gallagher wah wah thing in position 2. Going back to Rory. So the middle tone pot I don't really use at all, if ever. So what I did is I just super glued it in place. So I just put super glue in there, and it doesn't move at all now because it's super glued in place. And I just don't feel the need to change it because the guitar still works. It still sounds wicked, and I love this guitar. It's got a lot of problems, but I still love it. I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But yeah, I've never had a revelation guitar where it's come really. That's what I've gone. Oh my god, this is literally. I've got to do so much work to this. The only guitar that's come to me in recent times where I think, oh, I've got to do a bit of work to this was the Harley Benton. But not so much on the setup. I mean, the setup on the Harley Benton wasn't great. The Squire Bullet eclipsed the Harley Benton in tone, setup, and everything really. Well, not everything, because the Harley Benton its fit and finish was a tad better than the Squire Bullet, but only a tad. But the fit and finish of a Harley Benton was absolutely disgustingly good. It really was. I mean, it was really nice. But I say the neck was the main thing I had to do on that. And I did have to alter the action and the string height on the Harley Benton because it was like this. It was terrible. It was all over the place. And you can see in that initial unboxing video that it was just like, I wasn't into it. It took me a long time to get into it. But I say, once I carved the neck down and got the neck where it was really comfy for me, I was a happy little bunny. And again, that's another guitar I really miss, actually. I miss the Harley Benton because I'd spent so much time getting it right to the way I wanted it to be that, like, you know, it was one of those things. But again, you know, you have to unfortunately you have to make sacrifices sometimes. Unfortunately, the Bullet and the Harley Benton they had to go at the time because I needed money to things. Like recently, I've had to sell off my 2 SGs. Just before this outbreak kicked in, I had to sell off these 2 SGs to pay for some for dental work that I had done. You know, so it's, you know, you do have to make these sacrifices sometimes. But, you know, everyone's got those regrets. You know what I mean? Everyone's got a guitar or guitars. I would highly doubt people to have one guitar they've done it to. But I'm sure everyone's got a guitar they've gone, oh, I shouldn't have sold that. Or guitars they go, I shouldn't have sold them. You know what I mean? My Rory Gallagher Strat Squire that I did, I should have never have sold that either. That was very silly of me. I should never have got rid of that guitar. I put so much effort into that thing and I never should have got rid of it. It was very silly of me. And I just don't have the I just don't have it in me to do another one. In all fairness, what I would love to do another Rory Gallagher Strat relic, but it would have to be more. It'd have to be perfect, if that makes any sense. Like, I'd have to get it really right next time, because I got it really close. I feel got as close as I could go with my, I haven't got very good relicing technique, but like, as far as it went, I felt I got pretty close. But I think what I would like to do is I would like to get a Sunburst Strat with a nitro finish and relic it with a nitro finish, just so it's more right to the Rory spec, and and have a really dark rosewood fingerboard with clay dots and the one plastic dot in the 12th fret, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'd like to make it really as close as I could. I don't know. That'd be great for it. I'd love that. I would love to do that. Like proper Rory replica. And really just take my time. No, I want to get this done so I can play it. Literally kind of like get it assembled, and then go, right, this is going to take me a year to relic it properly, and really take my time with it, so it's so it's as perfect as I can get it. Anyway, I digress again. Okay, so moving on, final question there, everybody. Question 6. I hope I answered your question from question 5. So question 6 is all about this guitar. Okay, so question 6 this is why I took it down from a wall. I don't play this guitar a lot because its string spacing is pretty weird. If you look at the low E string on this guitar, it hangs off the top of the fretboard near enough. And the high E the high E's in a good place, but the low E just hangs off the top, and I don't really know why. It doesn't really affect it playing wise at all. It plays like a demon, and the neck on this thing is so skinny. I mean, look at that. You can really see it. If I just bring this up, look how skinny this neck is. It's super, especially at this top end here. That is super skin. There is nothing there. Like, if I put my hand around it, I can get my thumb over the entire fretboard. It's ridiculous. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't half make for a comfy guitar. I'll tell you that. Okay, so question 6 is the guitar used in the Dave Murray video a Korean Strat with a silver Fender logo? If so, what do you think of them? Yes, it is. It's a Korean Strat made with a silver Fender logo with the serial number starting with E. This one is E1048878. So E1048878, because you said you've got one. I'd be very curious to see how far away yours is to this one. I think this... Okay, 1 second, everybody. Okay. Welcome to Story Time with Dave. I hope you have time. Oh, by the way, I'll keep this guitar in D standard. Yeah, tune D standard. But for some reason, this guitar sounds absolutely fantastic in whole step down. Half step sounds okay. In standard tuning, it doesn't sound that good. But for some reason, in D standard, this thing sounds perfect. I don't know why. This guitar just absolutely adores it. It's like Steve Ray Vaughan's Charlie Strat, the white Strat that his friend Charlie made for him, that white one. That was designed to work in E flat. Stevie talks about that. The guitar was designed to kind of work in E flat. And I think Strats in general sound always better in drop tunings, like in D standard or E flat. I reckon Strats sound better. There's just something about that for a Stratocaster. I don't know. It's just probably me being neurotic again, because you listen to Rory Gallagher, who always played in standard, and it sounds amazing. So, back to Rory. Anyway, this guitar, this was technically my first Fender, although it's technically not really a Fender, it's a bit of a weirdo. So, I got this guitar in 2003. Yeah, it would have been. I got this guitar in 2003. So I've had it a long, long time. I've had this guitar a long time. And 2003? Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, it would have been. It was a year before I got my white Stratocaster. Anyway, I got this guitar in 2003, and I got it because a friend of mine, my friend was staying at somebody's house in their guest bedroom, and he random and this and again this sounds almost made up, but I promise you it's not. This is exactly the way it went. My friend was staying at this guy's house. He was just staying there in the guest bedroom, and he looked under the bed, and there was a case, a guitar case. And he opened it up. He pulled it out and opened the guitar case up, and this thing was sat in there. And he was like, "Oh, it's a Fender Stratocaster." And obviously, you know, knowing he was the drummer in my first ever band, so he obviously thought, well, I wonder if Dave would be interested in this, if the guy's interested in selling it. So the guy was interested in selling it. He said he hadn't played it for years, and you could tell that by the state this thing was in when I first saw it. It had rusty strings. The pickups were rusted on top. The saddles were rusted, and it was just a mess. The fretboard was a mess, and stuff like that. It was a total mess, and it didn't really work. It was very scratchy. Anyway, my friend bought this to our band practice. We used to have band practice at my uncle's. My uncle had like a shed at the time. He had built this shed, and it was like his little home studio. Anyway, we used to practice in there because he had a drum kit and amplifiers, and we used to go and practice there near the PA cell. And my friend bought this along in the hard case. He told me, I've got a Fender to show you. I was like, you know, at the time I had my Washburn, I had my Squier Strat that me and my brother had bought, and I had my Epiphone Les Paul, which was my main guitar at the time, the Epiphone Les Paul, and the Cherry Burst one. And so he said, I've got a Fender, and I went mental because, you know, I'd never seen a Fender. I had seen a Gibson Studio, and that's about as far as it gone. I'd never seen a Fender guitar because the guitar shops around here didn't have any Fenders. They had Squiers, they had Tokais, they had Gibson Studios, but they didn't have any Fender Stratocasters or Fender Telecasters. There just wasn't any back in 2003. Especially the guitar shops I went to, there wasn't any Fenders. So when he said, I've got a Fender Stratocaster to show, I was like, oh my god. Anyway, he bought it to band practice, and my uncle expressed an idea that he might buy it because he wanted one. He was after a Stratocaster. And so he bought it to band practice, and I had a little bit of a tweak on it. I couldn't really play anything at the time. You know, I was only 1 year into playing guitar, so I could play, you know, bar chords, Green Day stuff and stuff like that. And then my uncle took it inside the house, and he just took it away, and he was playing it, obviously inside, while we rehearsed, and I was playing my Epiphone Les Paul. Anyway, we came round, we took a break, and we came round, we were going to play By the Way, which is a song we always used to play. And I was like, oh, I really want to play that Fender and see what that's like on this song. And my friend said, well, why don't you just go and get it, you know? So I went into my uncle's house, and it was just laying on the settee. I couldn't find my uncle, actually, but this was just laying on his sofa. And so I just picked it up and walked out with it into the rehearsal room, which basically means my uncle would have come back down from wherever he was, walked in and the guitar was gone. So, which I find quite amusing now, actually. It's quite a funny little thing. But, so I took it back in there, and I put it in the, you know, neck position. I started playing it, and I was like, I'm playing a Fender. You know, which was a big thing. It was a big thing, and we played By the Way on it, and I was like, this is so cool. I really like this. And I don't remember now what happened after that band practice. I can't remember if I took it home after band practice or my friend took it with him and then I got it a week or so later. I forget offhand. I seem to think I bought it straight home with me, but I don't know. Anyway, yes, I did. I just remembered. Yeah, I bought it home with me that night. So after band practice, we all went home, and I bought this home with me. And I clearly remember walking into my kitchen and showing my dad this guitar. And my friend had mentioned how much the guy wanted for this guitar. He wanted 60 quid for it. Which to me back then was kind of like, you know, all the money in the world. Being 17 years old, I had no money. You know, so the guy weighed 60 quid for it, and we were like, well, it came in that hard case. And so my dad goes, oh yeah, we'll have that then. So my dad just bought it for me, basically. And my dad still rubs me saying, you know that's my guitar, right? It's not yours. Anyway, from that point on, I basically just kind of like, I just wanted to use this guitar, and I did. You know, this guitar became kind of like my main guitar for a while. Until I got my white guitar, actually. The Les Paul just stopped being used. As soon as I got this, the Les Paul stopped being used. And as soon as the white Strat came along, the Les Paul definitely got stopped being used. Anyway. But yeah, that's how I got this guitar. It just randomly came along. I don't know if this is even relevant to the question. It's not, is it? But, sorry. But, like I say, this guitar is a bit of a mess. There's all sorts of issues with it. It was originally blue as well. This isn't the original colour. Somebody's had this refinished black, and hopefully you'll be able to. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there, on the top horn, you can see the original blue underneath. It's starting to wear through, and there's not many places, but it was originally like an electric blue colour. This guitar. And it's really, really weird because it says Fender on the headstock and it's a silver logo. And it's got Goto machine heads, which are amazing. These are some of the best machine heads I've ever had on a guitar. And the neck is to die for. It's had a replacement nut as well. It's got a bone nut in there. This isn't the original nut, it's got a bone nut. It's also had some kind of like damage done to it at some point. So if you look on the first fret, you can see something's happened. And also here, around there, it looks like something's broken. It's like the headstock broke or something like that, and somebody's re-glued it and varnished it and something like that. So that first fret is a bit of a mess, as you can see, and then you get into the normal kind of fretboard, but you can kind of see it's got not much of a shine to it. It's a bit weird. And they didn't varnish the entire headstock, but you can see this brush stroke where somebody just painted a little bit of varnish over it. It's a bit of a mess. But I love it nonetheless, and it needs a fret. It needs a refret. Really, I was going to say it needs a fret dress. It doesn't need a fret dress. It needs a refret. But it's a fantastic guitar. We've got a full size block with Fender saddles, which I probably don't think you'll be able to see because that'll probably blur. But the tremolo is really good. The pickup's a flat pole. Got a single ply 50 scratch plate, which is a bit weird. But yeah, I reckon these guitars are brilliant. Sorry, that's the initial question, isn't it? Tangent Boy is here to stay. Anyway, I think they're great. I had another one actually as well, but it was my Dave Murray signature guitar, weirdly enough. But I sold that to help fund the 62 Strat. So I sold that one. And I could never sell this guitar. This is one of those guitars that, like, you know, I would have to be really in dire straits to have to sell this guitar, because I've got so many memories, so much emotional attachment to this thing. It's quite hard. It'd be extremely hard to part with. It would break my heart. It really would. And but yeah, it's an amazing guitar. I reckon they're really, really cool. And again, technically, as far as what I've read, again, I don't know how true this is. These are technically Squiers. These aren't really Fenders, but they were branded Fender because they're made in Korea. These were branded Fender for Japan, as far as I heard. I don't know how true that is. It probably isn't, but from what I've read, because I've never been able to find out much about them. There's quite a few of them out there, but I've never found out much about them. But silver Fender logo, serial number starting with an E. I think this one's an 88, isn't it? It's E1. Is E1 88 or 89? It's an 88, 89. I forget offhand. But they were branded for the Japanese market, from what I've read. Again, how true that is, I don't know. If somebody knows, then could they let us know in the comment section below. But they are fantastic guitars. Like I said, I mean, the neck pocket on this is obviously wrong, because the low E hangs off the top of the fretboard. But again, it doesn't affect its playability, and this guitar's never played bad. People actually always comment on this guitar saying the action's super high, which it kind of is. You can kind of see, like, you know, there's the action does look really high on this guitar. The action looks really high on this guitar though because the neck's so skinny. That's why the action always looks really, really high on this guitar. Because there are times where I'm like, that looks really high to me, but then you play it and it makes sense because the neck's so skinny. Like I said, I mean, it's top end here. I can actually just bar all the strings with my thumb. You know, it's crazy. You know, just, you know, I could do an F and then just extend my thumb over all the strings. It's that skinny. But yeah, I think they're fantastic guitars. Machine heads are amazing. Weird plastic roller nut, like string trees there. Bizarre rollers there. Really cool. I say Fender branded saddles with, you know, it's a full size block. It's a zinc block, but it's a full size. It's got the plastic kind of neck plate kind of defender thing. So under the neck plate, there's that plastic kind of cover, which I don't really know why they did that. It's kind of pointless. But it's kind of like a 50s spec Stratocaster. It looks like a 50s Stratocaster. It's got the single ply white guard. It's got the aged kind of pickup covers and knobs. The aged. Oh, it's got the tiniest tremolo in the world. It's like a Dave Gilmour-esque kind of tremolo arm. It's really small. Sorry about the blindingness of the whiteness. I can't. It's got a really small tremolo arm, which is totally threaded out, and it just spins. Oh, and it does come out. There you go. Learned something new. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm thinking about another guitar. Oh, you fool. Actually, come back here. We can show the people of the tube your little tremolo arm. I'm thinking about another. I got confused with another guitar then, but I got confused with my Squier Jimi Hendrix Strat. The tremolo arm in that thing just spins and won't come out, so he's just in there for good. Whereas this one does obviously come out. But this is a really tiny tremolo arm. This is absolutely diddy. It's, you know, if you look at where the curve is and then coming onto here, it's really small. And you've got some kind of like corrosion on it as well. It's a little bit rusty, and but it's a really nice, you know, it's a really nice tremolo system. It's got the most classic intonation pattern on the saddles. I mean, that is like a textbook intonation pattern. That it's ridiculous. But yeah, they're just fantastic guitars, and they're really, really cheap as well. I say most of them are branded Squier, but it's very rare to find one branded Fender, as far as I've read. Again, how true that is, I don't know. But they're fantastic. They are fantastic. This could do with a refret, a new nut, and maybe something going on with the neck. But in all fairness, I'm not that bothered about that, to be honest with you, because I've been playing it since 2003 with that. And I'm still not bothered about it. I actually took the neck off at one point and put it on my Squier because I wanted a Sunburst Strat with a maple neck. But it didn't last very long and it went back on here. But yeah, so yeah, I love this guitar. Like I say, it's one of those guitars that I don't play a great deal at all, but I could never get rid of because like I say, it'd break my heart to get rid of it because of the emotional attachment I've got to it. And I just love it. It's such a great guitar. And like I say, in D standard, like, you know, machine gun tuning, it sounds absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? It really does sound good. That neck pickup is it's a really dark sound. It doesn't really sound stratty for some reason. It does, but it doesn't. It's really warm and dark. But it's really, really cool. I love it to bits, and yeah, it's been my mate for a long time. And there's video footage of me doing a gig in 2012, playing Bad Penny. Weirdly enough, in Mablethorpe, we were playing on the beach on this stage, and that gig was really, really cool. It was during the summertime, and it was really nice and warm. It was just a gorgeous day, and we were doing this gig in 2012, and the first song in, we played Killing Floor. First song in, my high E broke on my white Stratocaster, and this was my backup guitar for years. This wherever Mr. White went, this guitar was. You know what I mean? Like they were inseparable. You know, this guitar and my white Strat were always my two guitars that I took to gigs. No ifs, no buts. These were my two guitars. So if my white guitar broke a string, I would go to this and I'd be happy. And actually, I used this guitar. I think I used this guitar more the summer of 2012 than I used my white Stratocaster. But anyway, there's footage on YouTube of me playing a gig, and I do Bad Penny, and that's this guitar, and it sounds unreal. It sounds so good. This guitar does. And I'm using my Marshall MG half stack at the time with I had a bigger pedal board at that time, but that's this guitar, and it just sounds brilliant. It really does sound brilliant, and yeah, I love it. And yeah, it's just fantastic. They're fantastic guitars. They really are. The lacquer on this guitar is actually broken really badly in the neck pocket. You probably won't be able to see it. No, I can't get it on shot, But yeah, it's amazing. If you can get one of these things, branded Fender or Squier, get it, because you won't regret it. They are super, super good guitars. So comfy, so playable, absolutely amazing. I've just realised I need to go because I'm going to run out of time on the camera in a minute and it's just going to cut off. So yeah, awesome guitars. Wrong way around for that answer. But sounds wicked. Really resonant. Really, really cool guitar. Love them. Absolutely love them. Yeah, if you can find one of these things, 88, 89 guitars made in Korea, absolutely get it if you can. They are absolutely fantastic guitars. The build quality, the way they're made, the way they feel, unreal. Absolutely unreal. Great, great, great guitars. You can normally get them for like 200 quid. If that. I bought the Dave Murray one for 180. But other than that, you know, they're not expensive. They're not break the bank guitars. And they are so worth it. They really are so worth it. So anyway, yeah. And again, silver Fender logo, which is really, really cool. I say, made in Korea. But again, it's like a 50s spec Stratocaster. Anyway, moving on. So I'm going to have to go now. But anyway, yeah, if you want to submit a question Q&A every Wednesday, everybody, let me know. Comment section below. Description box below, there's an email link to send me your questions. Yeah, and I'll see you again on Friday for another video. Is the... another Harley Benton video on Friday, everybody. A final assembly of the guitar, because I want to get a guitar. I want to start using the guitar in videos, basically. As simple as that. So, Harley Benton episode 3 kit build on Friday. And I'll see you then. So, have a great one until then, everybody. Have a great morning, afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world, in this weird world we live in. And be happy, be smiley, do what you can. God, it's weird. Anyway, I'll see you again soon, everybody. Have a great one. Goodbye now. Thank you very much for watching. Hope there wasn't too much stupidity in this Q&A. Yeah, see you again. Goodbye now.